When we talk about the to-do list, we captured the idea or the task that we need to do, and then it's about clarifying, right?
You need to decide what the task you need to do. Can you call the hotel right now, or do you need to talk to your spouse or somebody else before you do that?
So it's like prioritizing.
No, deciding. I'm sorry. It's called thinking. I know that's a tough job. You got to think. Wait a minute. Can I call a hotel right now? No, I need to decide about X, Y, and Z, or I need to look at what X, Y. I need to look at something else before I could do that. Good. What's the next step you need to do about that? So it's getting very granular about what specific things you need to do to move the needle on anything you have attention on. That's the clarify step. And second part of that is, and that's all done when what's true. My trip is on cruise control. My hotel is all set up. My whatever. And so those are projects in my vocabulary. Things I need to do, I can't finish with one action. I just need to keep track of that until it's done. What does done mean, and what does doing look like? That's the basic. Those are the basic tools of productivity. What am I trying to produce, and how do I need to allocate or reallocate my resources to make that happen? The big duh.
Why?
That's how you get out of the room. You say, I'm already out of the room. What do I need to do? Is you get up and walk. So outcome and action are the essence of productivity.
So why are
But
people
most
getting
people
it wrong?
don't finish that thinking.
Ah,
They don't capture what they need to do something about. They don't decide what they need to do about it. And so they walk around in ambient anxiety. Stuff wakes them up at 3:00 in the morning. Oh my God, I should, or I need to, or I forgot. The yada.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Customer Success Talks Real Challenges, Experts Advice, the podcast dedicated to helping those transitioning into customer success and early career customer success managers. I'm your host, Byron Toruño. Just like you, I'm here in this amazing world of customer success, and we are just in another episode where we will be touching about productivity. And there's a specific methodology that has been around for almost 25 years. And we have the pleasure of having the person who created that and who also printed that in an amazing book. Your
Oh my
book.
goodness.
This is a book I would recommend everyone to read. And you're going to find all the information and where to purchase Getting Things Done by David Allen in today's episode description. So, David, welcome officially to Customer Success Talks, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the invitation. Sure.
I would love to start with a basic question about getting to know a little bit more about Getting Things Done methodology. Why did you one day wake up and said, okay, I will build something, I will create something?
I did it for myself.
Okay.
No, I just did to stay clear. I started my own little consulting practice back in the early 1980s. And, I'd gotten a black belt in karate and the martial arts and done a lot of spiritual and meditation practices and so forth. And I realized the value of a practical value of a clear head. But I saw my business, I was getting busier and more complex in terms of what I was trying to manage. I said, so how do I stay clear? And so I began to just research and use little techniques by techniques for myself. How can I stay in control? And it turned out they all work, give me more clarity, more focus, more space in my head to think about meaningful stuff. And then I turned around with my consulting clients, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and so forth that I was working with. And I shared my techniques with them. And if they started to use them, it created the same results. More clarity, more focus, more room to think about their cool stuff. And much of that was very strategic for them. So that became just part of my basic business model, was basically helping people sort of manage this stuff as I discovered it could help me manage I didn't wake up one morning with all this. It was little piece by piece over time. But then somebody in the big corporate training world saw what I was doing and said, David, we need this in our home company. Can you design some sort of a training or some sort of a model, or I guess we could share this with a lot more people than just one-on-one. So I did, and it was probably the most successful training that they had done. This was Larky, 1983, 84, back in California. And so I found myself thrust into the corporate training world. You could have fooled me. Wasn't a big plan of mine. It just happened. That was an opportunity that presented itself, and they were the most ripe audience. They were being hit with the tsunami of email and corporate change and flattened organizations and more accountability pushed down the line. And so I wound up in the corporate training business, in the organizational training business. So for the next 15, 20 years, I spent thousands of hours training thousands of people. And then my one-on-one work was not so much consulting. It really turned into what we call now coaching, one-on-one with senior people that wanted me to sit down with them desk side one-on-one and help them implement this methodology. And I spent thousands of hours doing that. So that's where all this kind of came from. At some point I went, I had no idea what I'd come up with. I thought the people making a lot more money than I was, they'd already figured this out. No, they hadn't. And nobody else seemed to have done this, figured out what this model was. And so I had some good friends say, David, you got to write the book. So I went, how do you write a book? So that's how Getting Things Done, the first edition in 2001. That's how the first edition showed up. We revised it in 2015 to make it a little more current. But that's a short version of a very large story by it. So,
But it sounds so interesting, David. The way that you say it and the way you express it, it sounds like, I just had this problem. Someone told me to write a book. I helped millions of people, but did you imagine it was going to be so successful as it
had
is?
no idea. It was not part of my strategic plan. I just said, let me just take advantage of opportunities as they show up. So I did. And I wrote the book because nobody else seemed to have written it. And it seemed to be unique.
Mhm.
And so, and it was bulletproof. Anybody who tried to implement the methodology got more control, more focus, more, more clarity, more room in their head to think about the more meaningful stuff they need to think about. So who knew, no big strategic plan of mine. It just turned out that was, I said, look, this seems to be so valuable for anybody. Let me just share this with the world. So once I wrote the book, I said, I'm done. It's all in the book. And then God said, no, you're not done, David. And he didn't take me. So I said, okay, now what? So then we said, well, can we scale this? And that's where, I wrote the book, and then I got some feedback, people reading the book. Oh my God, this changed my life. Oh my God, this is great. Whatever. I went, okay, well, I guess this is scalable. Doesn't need me personally to distribute this education. And so that was the short version of another very long story since then about how do we scale this. Yeah, it's basic principles that won't change. And I don't care 100 years from now, you still have to have an in basket. You still have to collect things that have your attention. You still have to make decisions about next actions and outcomes desired about those actions, and some systematic way to keep track of all that so it's not in your head.
Yeah.
These are universal principles, and you could have fooled me that I came up with what the basics of that were. And maybe because I never had any formal education in time management, business, or psychology, I had no preconditions about what this needed to look like or sound like or be. So I just came up with what really worked.
Been translated to 30 different languages and 3 million copies sold.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to know, David, from you, why do you think it's so popular? Like, why is it? Why are the people
it works, Byron.
okay?
It works. How many other things do you read that work? That if you apply them or think you can apply them, most of them are either high level stuff,
Yeah.
big vision, big whatever, change your life, transform, down to keep a list, manage this, organize this.
I mean, I have my notes here, and that's
So
because
I came up with a way to contextualize the whole thing.
yeah,
And then you could do as much of it as you want. See, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a habit change expert. I just figured out what the game was. I wrote the game that works. You can decide how much of that game you wanted to play. That's up
yeah,
to you. Not my job.
yeah.
That's yours. So various people around the world have then decided to play at that getting things done game at some different levels, and it made a huge difference in their lives and their work.
Well, it worked for me.
Could have fooled me.
It worked for me because something that you touch on your book is you said explicitly your mind is for having ideas, not to hold them. And when I saw that, it was like it exploded because I'm a person who tends to have a lot of ideas, but then that also means how do I apply all of them with the time that I have? And then at night it was hard for me to sleep because I is sometimes it's weird how the brain works, but the ideas comes sometimes in really weird places. And normally it's when I'm chill and about to sleep, and it's like, okay, I have this idea, but I don't want to forget it. And then that anxiety of not wanting to let it go was giving me that like night anxiety. Now I'm just what I'm doing is that I'm collecting all the to-do list. I mean, all my tasks and ideas in a book or in the calendar. So I think that was something that really, really impacted me when I read "Your mind is for having ideas, not to hold them."
Yeah, your mind's a crappy office.
It is.
Your brain did not evolve to remember, remind, prioritize, and manage relationships between more than four things. That's data. That's scientifically proven data now. You try to keep track of more than four things, you're going to not be as strategic, not be as present, not be, you know, because your head can't do that. It wasn't
Yeah.
designed for that. Your head does brilliant stuff. But right now, you're looking around and you can say, that's an office, that's a person, this is a computer, that's a whatever. And so you're making a lot of sense out of your world right now, which your brain evolved to do to
Mm.
survive. But as soon as you got more than four of those, you kind of trying to keep track of, you're
Yeah.
toast.
And that's part of being efficient and effective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is a capture habit, David?
Well, it's anything pops into your mind that you might need to do something about
Okay.
later, as opposed to right now. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, the baby's crying. I need to handle that. Oh, the fire is burning our chicken on the stove. I need to go handle that. So those things handle themselves. Things you go, oh yeah, but I need to get chicken for the next week, or I need to handle the baby's or my kids' education for the next semester. Those kinds of things, those are in your head, but unless you decide to capture those and decide something and then use that as a trigger to decide, well, what am I going to do about that? Well, capture's the first step. I got to grab what's got my attention. You can do that however you want to do it, but don't do it in your head. It'll keep reverberating around in your head. So capture it onto, you know, one of my favorite capture tools, which I've had for 40 years, in my pocket right there.
That simple?
That's simple. Write it down. That's not my organization. That's what I
Uh-huh.
grab stuff that then I need to think about later on and decide what I'm going to do about it, if anything.
Oh,
But you can also capture, come on, my invest. It's got 2 pieces of mail that I got today from anonymous.
so that's like moving. That's like moving to different houses. You first capture what you want to take, or you first see what you want to take.
Well, you need to capture anything you need to then decide something about later on, as opposed to right now. So anything that you might need to then do something about, handle about, make a decision about, or whatever, you need to grab that somewhere, write it
Mhm.
down, digitalize it. It doesn't matter as long as you don't. Unfortunately, most people's digital tools are kind of black holes. When they put stuff in there, they don't look at it again.
Yeah.
So you need a good capture tool digitally. I use Brain Toss, which was designed by two Amsterdam old GTDers, because anything to write in there or capture in there on my iPhone or my iPad goes right to my email, because I clean up my
Oh.
email regularly. So that's not like a black hole. It goes into my system that then I need to make decisions about.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, you can write it down. You can write it on your hand. You write it on the wall. I don't care. You can write
Yeah.
it somewhere. Get it out of your head. As
Yeah.
long as you're going to then deal with it sooner than later, given steps 2, 3, and 4. I need to then decide what I need to do about that, if anything, which is clarify the step 2. Step 3 is, okay, how do I organize a reminder about that where I need to see it? Step 4 is, how do I look at my lists and my reminders at the right time and place? Step 5 is then, okay, given all that, how do I make a good conscious decision about what to do right now?
So
Engage.
what I since I read your book, I was thinking about to-do list because you do mention that, and I noticed that the way that I was doing my to-do list in the past was exactly how not to do it. And it was just like a small note. It's like call hotel and then what? And then even I go back and it was like I didn't know, I didn't even remember what I needed to do. So now I'm using my calendar because I separate time and actually do that. When we talk about the to-do list, we captured the idea or the task that we need to do, and then it's about clarifying, right?
You need to decide what the task you need to do. Can you call the
Mm.
hotel right now, or do you need to talk to your spouse or somebody else before you do that?
So it's like prioritizing.
No, deciding. I'm sorry. It's called thinking. I know that's a tough job. You got to
It's
think.
just
Wait a minute. Can I call a hotel right now? No, I need to decide about X, Y, and Z, or I need to look at what X, Y. I need to look at something else before I could do that. Good. What's the next step you need to do about that? So it's getting very granular about what specific things you need to do to move the needle on anything you have attention on. That's the clarify step. And second part of that is, and that's all done when what's true. My trip is on cruise control. My hotel is all set up. My whatever. And so those are projects in my vocabulary. Things I need to do, I can't finish with one action. I just need to keep track of that until it's done. What does done mean? And what does doing look like? That's the basic. Those are the basic tools of productivity. What am I trying to produce, and how do I need to allocate or reallocate my resources to make that happen?
that sounds a lot of energy as well, right?
It's kind of. I'm sorry. It's a big duh.
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 Why?
That's how you get out of the room. You say, I'm already out of the room. What do I need to do? I need to get up and walk. You know. So outcome and action are the essence of productivity.
So why are
But
people
most
getting
people
it
don't
wrong?
don't finish that thinking.
Ah,
They don't capture what they need to do something about. They don't decide what they need to do about it. And so they walk around in ambient anxiety. Stuff wakes them up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, I should, or I need to, or I forgot. The yada yada.
yeah. That's when people start. That's when you notice when someone is maybe chaotic as well.
Maybe what?
Chaotic,
Cost?
like a chaotic person. Chaotic. It's like what their head is all over around, always late, never delivering.
Yeah.
You also talk about the weekly review.
Well, once a week you need to catch up, because life changes a lot faster than our systems and even our personal organization could keep up with it. But once a week, you better catch up. You better pull up the rear guard. Say, okay, wait a minute. What are all the things I've committed to this week? What do I need to do? And look at last week and say, oh God, oh that's right, I told them I should. Or next 2 weeks, oh my God, I should better, I ought to, whatever. So those are the kind of things that you only do when you sit back and reflect on the commitments you've made and your personal systems, if you've been keeping track of a personal system at all. And then take a look at, okay, what does that remind me I need to do? Oh, that's right. I need to, and then I ought to, and then whatever. But that's what, and it doesn't have to be weekly. Sometimes it's daily. Sometimes it may be every month or so. You maybe need to catch up and whatever. It depends on the volume in your life and the speed with which things are changing in your life and your work. If they're changing fast in your work and in your life, then the more frequently you need to do this kind of review to, come up from pull your head out of the water and look around and get a breath of air and then decide, okay, what's next?
It sounds simple, to be honest, and I noticed it when I was reading the book as well. But I always ask myself, why was I not doing that before? Why do I have to actually have someone telling me to do that? That's
Could have fooled me. I thought anybody should have done this.
yeah.
When I started working one-on-one with mostly senior people in these companies that I started to do training in, you know, they're making a lot more money than I'll ever see in my life. I'm like, haven't you guys already figured this out? And they
Yeah.
hadn't. And
Yeah.
I spent thousands of hours one-on-one with some of the most sophisticated, smart, productive people you'd ever meet in your life, walking them through this process. And it's like they're going, oh my.
I think that you also talk about there's a word that that you touch on the book. I don't know if it's things or stuff. Can you remember? Can you remind me?
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
stuff.
those
It's
stuff.
stuff that you haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do about it, but I got to do something about it.
That's what I mean. And then, but then at the end, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna do them right now. I'm gonna place them on hold, but they start adding up, and that happens a lot with the emails that they start adding up and adding up. Any
Why?
advice?
Why? Because
Because they're so small.
you're not making decisions about what each one means. Is that trash? Is that reference? Is that something you need to do something about? So people are just collecting stuff. It's like if you walk into anybody's house or apartment and see where their in basket is, it's usually the first place that has a flat surface inside their door where they've collected mail and junk mail and bills and whatever. But they haven't decided, is this mine? Is this my spouse's? Is this my kids? What is this? What do I need to do about this? So people have allowed a lot of that stuff to just accumulate for which they haven't made decisions about what it means or what to do with it.
The decision is like the biggest step that people
You
tend
gotta,
to
you
miss.
gotta think. I know that's a muscle most people are not used to using. You have to think. Is this piece of email something I should keep or something I put away or something I should need to give to my spouse? What is this? Something I need to do about this? Those are things. That's why I have a physical in basket to throw all that stuff into because sometimes I'm not ready to make that decision. I'll make it later, but I will make it because I get my in basket, my physical in basket and my email in baskets zeroed out every
Mhm.
24 to 48 hours.
I feel that the thinking side, it sounds a lot like why? Why am I gonna work on this? Why is it gonna
No, no,
work?
no, no, don't bother with that
Why?
stuff. Just think, what do I need to do about this?
Mhm.
Yeah, you could do the why stuff if you want. Why? Well, I'm on the planet. I'm supposed to be a good person, and therefore, so your life principles and your purpose and all that stuff could come into play. But come on, that's not going to help you decide which piece of email you need to do what with.
So just think and decide.
Well, yeah, it's not hard thinking. He's wait a minute. What is this? Okay, this is to me. And this one, because Catherine's not here, I grabbed that email. No, both of these are to me. Okay, they're from the government. So probably stuff I need to know from the Dutch government here. I'll figure that out once I open it up and decide. But I'm not going to decide right now. I'm going to talk to you. But I will decide. And I know that. Therefore, I don't have any intention on that at all. So how you manage your own stuff is as much part of your system as your physical system. Yes. You could have some sort of you got all enthused and downloaded some sort of organizational program on your computer, and you think that's all exciting on the weekend, and you got into geek mode, and oh, that's so cool. But if you don't use it, it ain't worth nothing. And
Yeah.
it's just creating more stress than it relieves.
Yeah. All
So
that cognitive load.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And don't blame me.
I was
That's not
about
my
to.
fault.
I was about to.
I define the game. You decide whether you want to do anything about that game or not.
Yeah. You, you also touch on the bottom up, top down framework. Can we give to
Well, if
the
you don't handle what's right in front of you in terms of the immediate things around you, it's going to be very difficult for you to get brain space to think about the bigger game. So a lot of people would like to think about the bigger game, but they got financial stuff, they got mail to deal with, they got email, they got all kinds of things in their face right now that are keeping their brain from being able to be free to think about in a bigger game. Not, and the bigger game is fun. If you want to think about the bigger game right now, great. Think about the bigger game. That's good stuff. Why am I here? Why am I on the planet? What's my vision of wild success? What are my goals I need to accomplish over the next year or two? And so if you're wired to think that way, great. But then you need to drill it down to, okay, what am I going to do about those things? What's next? And if you don't deal with that, that undermines, unfortunately, all your creative, inspirational energy.
I think that that's a lot of what happens, right? That it's hard to as well measure the energy that something is going to take.
Well, the next action is not hard on anything. Make a call, surf the web, go to the store, buy this, draft this. Those are not hard to do. Most
Mhm.
people overwhelm themselves by all the things they think they need to do to make this whole thing happen, as opposed to, wait a minute, what's the next thing you need to do? Well, I need, uh, hmm, I should figure out. How do you figure out? I guess I should surf the web about. Okay, good. Oh, I need to talk to my boss about. Oh, I need to talk to my spouse about. Okay, great. Those are then the most granular, actionable things that you can come up with. But most people don't make those automatic. That's why you actually have to think. Just talk to my wife, talk to my husband, talk to my boss, search the web about whatever. And at that level of game, that's fascinating. You could have fooled me years ago. How many people so sophisticated, so smart, making a lot of money, have not figured out how to think that way?
They
It's a
haven't.
muscle you have to train.
Yeah. Yeah. Like as per what I'm learning here is like think is the biggest word here. Pause.
Yeah,
And
but I think not at some big level. I think, wait a minute, there's a light bulb out in my apartment.
yeah.
What do I need to do? That's thinking. Do I have the bulb to replace it? That's thinking. I don't. Okay. How do you get one? That's thinking. Thinking, thinking, is required at these most ordinary, life kind of issues and things. You just have to do that.
How have you seen since you started the GTD, the getting things done methodology until today? How have you seen everything people behavior changing since then when it comes to
None,
productivity? None?
none,
None?
no. It's almost right. I
I
talk
thought
to
I was gonna
anybody.
hear
I talk to anybody now or anybody 20 years ago. Say, well, great. What's got your attention? Oh, I need to handle. Okay, great. What do you do about that? That's a good question. What do I need to do about that? Nothing's new.
I think that what
Nothing,
is
nothing has changed about any of that. A lot of the digital world that's changed a whole lot,
yeah.
the last 20 years has just added more complexity to tools that people think they can use to get themselves clear and organized. But frankly, a lot of them create more stress than they relieve.
I mean they can be
Just to kind
expensive
of try to
too.
figure it out. How do I use Microsoft Outlook now? How do I use Windows Notes right now? How do I use Asana? How do I use Slack? How do I deal with all that stuff that's showing up? So what's changed is the input that people are getting and how much they're getting.
And how to
It's
work
what I call
together.
channel creep. There's this, how many channels are anybody watching or listening to this right now? Are you getting? You're getting Slack, you're getting email, you're getting Google Meets, you're getting Teams, you're getting all kinds of stuff that people thought that was going to ease your pressure.
Mhm.
Yeah, good luck. Trying to even figure out how to use Teams, how to use Microsoft Outlook, how to use Slack, how do you, and where does it fit in your game? Those things, those become huge projects for people to
I have
stay.
seen it in companies. It's like, okay, we have so many systems, we need to centralize some.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Hmm.
good. Yeah, good. But once you centralize it, can you get everybody to play? If you can't, they don't work.
You wrote a book as well, or like a different version. Let me know if I'm right or wrong about working with other people, right?
Yeah, it was called Team, Getting Things Done with Others, because that was it. Kind of a big gap that we had. People,
Yeah.
we trained people personally to become much more highly productive, and they walked back into work and then walked into a landmine of unclarity and whatever, and they had to use their own personal organizational expertise defensively, just try to stay afloat and stay current about all the weirdness and ambiguity and lack of agreements making that was going on, with their teams or whatever. And so, my co-author Ed Lamont and I, combined have about 65 years of consulting with teams and whatever who started to implement GTD, and they discovered, yeah, but engaging with other people with these principles, they're the same principles,
I was going to ask you about that. So is the same principles, yes, including more people?
same principle. What's got our attention as a team? What's got our attention as a couple? What
Yeah.
has our attention as a family? So there's a capture process that needs to happen relative to people you're engaged with. And then you have to decide, so what are we going to do about it? And who's doing it? And how do we organize that? How do we manage that? How do we then make sure that, how do we reflect on all that stuff on some concurrent basis so we can all stay clear? So they're the same capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. Same principles apply to groups of people.
I think it's not that easy either, right? Because it's
If this were easy, I'd be
I,
out of a job.
yeah, but at least for me as an individual person, I struggle with my own thinking into, okay, now I need to think, I need to analyze, I need to capture, execute. But with other people, it's like, how do we get into their minds?
You don't get into their minds. You just create systems and processes where
It's repeatable.
they play or don't play.
The other, which is sounds straightforward and simple, but I think it's important also to highlight, it's about the 2-minute rule that you added in the book. As simple as that. But
Yeah,
but David,
but you have to decide the next action first.
the
What's
what?
the next action? And if you do that action in 2 minutes or less, just do it then. It'll take you longer to track it and realize it and reflect on it than it
But
would
isn't
be
that
to do it
circle?
then.
Isn't it an addictive circle? Because when I start applying it, it's like, okay, there's so many things that can actually be done in less than 2 minutes. At some point, it's going to add up and it's going to be like a big task.
No, mine never adds up. They're all done. Why should it
Um,
add up? Only because you
um,
didn't do them.
but then I get stuck. I'm just challenging this a little bit of in the sense of then I'm going to be a reactive worker
Why not?
because I
You
also
are
need to be
already.
proactive. Sorry, what?
You are already a reactive worker.
Mm,
You're reacting to the world that's coming at you. Whether you created that or not, you're still responding to input that you then put in motion or have allowed to put in motion. So what? That's how you get out of the room. You respond. That's how you walk. You respond to,
yeah.
I need to keep my balance. So you get yourself out of balance and then put a next leg forward. Right. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's, that's how the game goes. But you have to decide whether what you're reacting to is what you want to be reacting to or not.
Ah,
See,
that's
in team, our biggest chapter is about no. No, not going to do that because I got these other things to do. And that's not something that I have to then respond to right now, or I don't need to respond to now, or something I need to renegotiate with whoever is asking me about this.
And that can be so scary, especially if it comes from managers, especially if it comes from a customer.
Of course. If that were easy, there'd be a lot more people taking your job.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's AI, what is going to happen, but that's a different topic.
Well, AI is just collaborative support.
Yeah.
It's just decision support. It's like it'll help you make decisions about X, Y, and Z, and that's great. I use it daily, several times usually. It's like, who's this person?
Yeah,
What
me
should I know
too.
about them? That doesn't make the decision about what to say to them. I have to decide that. But AI is a great personal assistant in that regard.
David, to start wrapping up today's episode, is there any last advice that you will give someone who's feeling like so many anxiety and so many things on their head? Is there any last thing that they should apply now?
Yeah,
Tell me.
relax,
Relax. Let go. Be more
relax,
present.
and grab like I have right now on my desk. Grab a pen and paper and
Mm,
grab whatever's got your attention. Get it out of your head, and then make some decision about how you're gonna keep track of what you need to do about that, if anything. It's simple stuff. And if anybody who has a calendar or a grocery list is already doing this, but my head can't do that really well. Let me then write that down and keep that as a template or a checklist or something. So, there's no difference in terms of what I'm teaching.
yeah.
It's just I'm doing it thoroughly. What it's like to have nothing on your mind. People meet me and they go, God, David, you're nothing like what I thought you'd be like. They thought I was going to be corporate and buttoned
What were they
down
expecting?
and whatever. And I'm like a crazy, intuitive, follow my hunches kind of guy. That's how I came up with getting things done. Was that allowed me to be able to do that and still manage, a busy life.
Yeah. Interesting because what it stays with me, I think there are words, weekly review, capture, think, decision. That's what stuck with me.
Good. Those are good
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Can't
David,
go
what is
wrong with
next?
it. Can't go
Oh,
wrong with any of that.
yeah. What is next in your life? What is next? What are you gonna do?
I think we might have a new revision on getting things done
Oh, but this
that
one just came
includes,
out.
a lot more kind of like current what kids are dealing with these days with AI and with other kinds of things and a lot of other stuff. So I don't know. I don't know when that might show up or how that's going to show up, but that's kind of in the works. A co-author who's going to collect a lot of great stories. So the kids, young, I say kids, I just turned 80. Anybody who's less younger than 60 is a kid, as far as I'm concerned. Kids are going, how do I get started? How do I do this or whatever? So we want to address that maybe a little clearer than the previous books have done. So we'll
Man,
see. That's in the works.
I will be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, so much for your time, and a pleasure to meet
Yeah.
you.
It's been fun.
Like I always say, everyone, remember, keep learning, keep growing, and let's keep improving the world of customer success. Until next time.
Yeah, no kidding.